Welcome, everybody, to this World Satsanga held on the 26th of October 2022 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And as usual, I encourage you to visit his YouTube site, The Kevin Moore Show, to see his latest offerings on his docu-series that he's compiling called They Call Us Channelers. So let's have a look at this month's agenda. Well, firstly, I'm going to do a lecture on actually being patient and being of service. This is quite important at the moment because we're in a situation where everything is based around instant gratification and people wanting to have recognition when they do something straight away rather than earning recognition or earning respect. Then we're going to have the questions and answers as normal. And then right at the very end, we're going to have the meditation, which is a meditation on remaining calm. Now, I may have done this before, but I feel that with all the turmoil that we're experiencing, not only in the UK, but around the world, of course, in Ukraine and the Russian side of the world, we need to have a lot of calmness. So we're going to have a meditation on calmness. So how do we stay in a state of mind where we don't request or need to have instant gratification, where we're patient about what we're doing? Well, it's difficult for most people because we all expect to have some sort of reward. And when we do something for somebody, we expect to get the reward back. If you consider everything we do something, we do a piece of work, we work for somebody, we work for a company, we work for ourselves, and we get rewarded financially or benefit in kind. And we also get praise or status. So if we don't get this, we start to feel unloved, unwanted. We feel that we're being abused. We feel that we're being neglected. We feel that we're being taken advantage of. But we have to look at this in a different way. We have to think of it in terms of what are we doing to help others, and what are we in helping others. We are benefiting our own evolution, and of course we're a benefiting source as well. So we're working on a higher level, a higher platform, if you like. So if we're patient about what we're doing, if we're patient that what we're doing is actually benefiting in some way, irrespective of us getting feedback, and we consider that benefit is helping somebody and ultimately helping our own evolution, then we will no longer need to feel the need for instant gratification or the need to be patient, patiently waiting for the rewards, the verbal rewards, the financial rewards, or the benefiting kind rewards, or status rewards. So just consider that everything that you're doing is an evolutionary opportunity, a way in which you and the other person or persons that you're working with, for, being of service to, is going to assist in evolution. They will be grateful. They may not say that they're grateful. They may not tell other people what you've done, but they will be grateful. Within the back of their mind, maybe their subconscious, they will be grateful that you've helped them in some way, help them move over a particular hurdle, help them understand something, help them work around a particular problem. Think of it as being of service is about being of service to one's evolution, the collective evolution of the local area that you're within, or even the planet, because as we work together in this way, our ethos starts to percolate through different people as well. And some of them pick it up. Most don't, but some of them pick it up and start to work in a similar way themselves. And also that what you're doing is a higher thought process, not requiring reward, not becoming impatient about not getting reward or respect or recognition, is actually a negative, low frequency thought process. Everything we do as long as we do it with the thought process that we're going to create benefit for someone or something, creates an evolutionary progression within ourselves and those other individuals that work with us. And of course, it affects the evolutionary progression of our true energetic self, which we sometimes call the Godhead or the Oversoul. And we sometimes create, or always create, I should say, evolutionary progression of source as well. So everything we do, we should consider that it's to do with gaining evolutionary progression. Now, we won't see this in this particular lifetime. We may feel uplifted, which is a function of progression. We may feel good about what we're doing, which is a function of what we're doing. As long as we don't feel egotistical, we don't feel that we're above everybody else. We don't feel that, you know, I'm the savior of the world, for example. As long as we are in an understanding that the benefit to us is received after this incarnation, but we may experience some benefit in terms of our frequential ascension during this incarnation, should be considered as being reward enough. In actual fact, we can't put any form of status, any form of fiscal or monetary value, or any form of material wealth or reward upon any form of evolutionary progression. It is beyond that. It is the most difficult thing to earn. So in getting evolutionary progression, we are achieving something which is beyond any form of physical reward, status, thanks, physical, fiscal, or material gifts. It's beyond that. So consider that you're working for a higher currency, that you're working for the benefit of others, of course, yourself and source, and that your reward will be in a currency which is above that which is available in the physical universe. Your reward is going to be evolution. And so when we get impatient about not being recognized, not being given the respect or the status that we think we deserve because we've done something for a number of people over the years, just ignore that egotistical thought process. Put it to one side. Recognize that it's not what you are. It's not your high frequency self. It's just a low frequency thought, behavior, and action that could end up creating a downward spiral, making us more and more needy, more and more attached to the physical, and therefore create this karma, this karmic link with being in the physical and being of the physical, rather than being in the physical but not of the physical. So it's very important to recognize that we are working for our progression in our evolutionary level. And in doing so, we affect others' evolution. And in doing so, we increase the evolutionary progression of source as well. It might only be a minute microscopic amount of progression, but that minute microscopic amount of progression is worth all the wealth in the physical universe, not just on Earth, but at every habitable location in every galaxy or frequency in the physical universe. We cannot put a value on it other than evolution is that which we seek. So think of it in these ways. Don't get bored or worried or walk away from that which you've worked on because you're getting impatient. Those around you have not rewarded you, have not put you on a pedestal, have not given you an award or a knighthood or an MBE or a CBE, or giving you other levels of accolade that you would seek. Just think that in the background, you're being of service in a really important way. And that is to become evolved. And in becoming evolved, so Source evolves. And this is the most important thing that we can do and realize that we are doing whilst we're in this incarnation. So just transfer this value as being, I'm evolving, I'm doing the best I can. I should do more to evolve. Now, obviously, do more when you can. You don't want to burn out. You don't want to create a condition where you're not able to look after your basic needs or the needs of others that depend upon you. But moreover, you do what you can when you can. You're of service in the way that you can be of service in the time that you can be of service. And again, that service should be not forced upon people when it's necessary. So we don't want to create them being dependent upon you. We want to be able to make them independent. So again, if you're helping them become independent by giving them the tools or the opportunity to become independent, that again is allowing them to evolve even further. The old saying, it's better to teach a man to fish than to give a man a fish, because if you give a man a fish, you feed him for one day. If you teach a man a fish, he will feed himself for the rest of his life, is very important. It's an important concept. And in helping others to understand how they can evolve by being of service and making them independent is another way of gaining reward. Seeing somebody flourish, seeing somebody grow, seeing somebody evolve is payment enough. And you should have joy in your heart when you're doing this. So detach from material, physical, status-based rewards. Be patient that what you're gaining is currency that is well above anything that's available in the physical universe. And understand and know that you are evolving. And this, through your interaction with others in a service-based way, without the desire to receive any form of reward, thanks, feedback, respect, accolade, physical gift or financial reward, is unnecessary. That's today's lecture. And it's a particularly difficult one to get our head around. And I would say that from my experience, and I've no doubt from the experience of others, it is something that we have to continually revisit in our minds, specifically when we get a little bit frustrated with things that happen around us in the physical. And so remembering this lecture, remembering that the currency that you're gaining is above the physical, and that it's more desirable than anything else in the multiverse, is a way to reset yourself, to reboot yourself, and to realign and bring yourself back in harmony with being of service to those around you, to self and source, and focus on that which creates evolution and not that which creates physical benefit. Okay. Now it's time for the questions and answers. So welcome to you all. And it's been a month gap, hasn't it? Because I've been away. So I apologise for the gap being September, but we all need a bit of a recharge every now and then. So let's have a look at these questions, and hopefully we can get through them quite quickly. Okay. So it's good to see you all. I'm really pleased that you're here, and I can feel the energies already. It's fantastic. Thank you. First one's from EE, and this is from a lady in Australia. With the Congress and the United States putting more awareness onto UFOs recently, how do you think we are close to some sort of disclosure? I don't. I feel this is a lot of misinformation because they're already here, clearly, but most of them are a higher frequency. So
they're moving around us, but we just don't see them or feel them. Although we might sense their presence, we don't actually know, we can't actually see them or touch them or taste them, so to speak. It's only when we start to evolve or rise to the frequencies whilst we're in this incarnation that we will start to see them as being here and recognize they've been here for some time. And that is a result of us needing to be, shall I say, significantly more immature than we are right now. And right now we're displaying significant lack of maturity worldwide. So when we start to become more mature, we start to think of others rather than ourselves. We start to think of the collective, the human beings as a collective rather than ourselves. Then we will start to become more mature and we'll rise to the frequency. Then we'll start to see these other entities as incarnate entities, but a slightly higher frequency. Then we'll start to see them. So the second part of this question, worldwide seems to be lots more people witnessing UFOs recently. Those individuals would be people who have individually risen to the frequencies a bit more. So they would start to see those other incarnate entities that are sort of in the sort of the fourth frequency level, the astral level, but probably a bit lower. So they start to see it with their peripheral vision, or if they are higher frequency anyway, they would start to become more capable of perceiving these things. And with some people, that if they're lucky, they might be able to also have that perception overlaid on their physical vision as well. So these people who are higher vision will be seeing these things. But also, they may be individuals who are I'm not going to say picked out, but they've chosen to be part of a group of individuals who are maybe already interacting with these entities anyway, and now they're being allowed to see them. Okay. Next one's Anita. Well, thank you, Anita, for coming. We shan't say your last name and we shan't say where you're from. Thank you for coming. You're new here. Basically, it's just a sharing of knowledge, and people send questions in via the chat, and I usually get the information from what I call the greater reality, or we can call it source, or we can call it God, or just clear sentience, just knowingness. And so we're able to try to answer questions that are difficult to answer, or at least give direction. Okay, so thank you for coming. Next one's from Ulla. Is there a missing link in evolution, human evolution? Did human level souls incarnate into higher primates as well as Neanderthals? Cro-Magnon before Homo sapiens? Was Homo sapiens transplanted here, or is native to Earth? Is the Homo sapiens the only one given individualized free will, which was introduced to us only 1 million years ago? The Neanderthals were actually quite intelligent vehicles for us to use. So they were not as low frequencies as we think. We were not given the true picture as to how we as souls would have incarnated into that body. There is a level of evolution, clearly, and there's a level of intervention, clearly, so that those bodies that we use to experience, learn, and evolve here are capable of coping with frequential changes, climatic changes, environmental changes as a result of it, other changes that allow us to become more connected whilst we're here. So there's a mixture of it all, to be honest, including a lot of the different body types we have now, different genomes, such as Afro-Caribbean, Indian, Asian, white Caucasian from the western side of the world, etc., American Indian, all these so-called First Nation body types. A lot of them didn't come from the Earth in the first place, hence them being a significant difference in them. But also there are some that have survived the frequential changes, so their bodies have evolved a little bit, and they've allowed them to survive the drops in frequency. And this is why we've got this plethora of different body types, different skin colors, and different sort of strengths and weaknesses that we see right now. So it's a little bit of both, really. Now this one's come from Nicole. It's about 3 questions here, actually. We'll deal with the first one first. How do we avoid karma with a toxic, probably taxing you the right way, toxic family member short of cutting them out of our lives? Is this ever acceptable? I've tried to have a balanced relationship with my brother, but he is so negative that after a while it becomes detrimental to be around him. He's an energy vampire. I just don't feel well after a while of being with him. Well, he won't do, because if you've taken your energy, you will feel very depleted. I've tried to explain this to him and set better boundaries, but rarely does he take responsibility or does change anything. Any suggestions? All you can do is love them and leave them, basically. In family units, there's always going to be, polar opposites, unless you're very lucky. And so what we can do is just send them love, recognize that they're souls on their own journey, recognize that they're probably not very experienced in incarnation, or they might even be those souls that I'm classifying as the backdoor people. They're the souls whose evolutionary content and sentience is in between the so-called human soul and the so-called animal soul. They're in between the two. So it might be that's what your brother is. But all you can do is recognize that they're doing their best, but that best isn't up to your standard. But just love them anyway. But if you're having problems in terms of being in close quarters to them, then taking their energy, then distance yourself, or get yourself a good shield so that you can be in the same space and not be affected by it. Okay. Next question. If parents occupy a primary role karmically with children, what about grandparents or aunts and uncles? If parents cannot fulfill their responsibilities or have difficulty in doing so, is it a duty of service for grandparents to step in, or is that crossing the line into someone else's karma? As extended family members, how do we avoid the karmic trap whilst also being of service to family members in need? This is why we're here. It's to be able to traverse our incarnation, so to speak, navigate through our incarnation without it accruing basically any form of karma or any form of link between individuals. So if the grandparents are being of service, then I would suggest that is good. It's good karma. It's called dharma. Good karma is dharma in various different texts, Buddhist texts, etc., Hindu texts. So what we have to do is to understand how to interact with these people, how to interact with our children, if they've got children, how to interact with those children without creating a karmic link. And the karmic link is usually things like dependency, or a function where we've created a condition where we need to negate it, for example, like we've done something wrong, where we've created a link with them that is going to need to be removed so that we can move on. So the thing is to be very, very considering in what we do and how we do it, and to make sure that we keep the thought process of doing the best we can for the individuals without becoming too entwined in their own existence. Bearing in mind that if we have children, they've got their own life plan and their own way of dealing with their life plan, and so did our parents, and so will their children, your grandchildren. But being a guiding light is the best way forward as much as possible, without pushing it onto them. Allow them to be basically what they are, but also give them the chance of choosing what they are. That's the individualized free will bit. Right, next question from NA. Based upon projections, by the year 2035 or so, 1 in 3 children will be on the autism spectrum. This is quite a common subject matter. There is a speculation it's linked to DDT and other chemicals in our food and water, but is there a practical spiritual reason for this influx? Are these children of a higher vibration? And if so, what purpose do they serve? How can we help them as educators and parents? Basically, they're a higher frequency, and they communicate on a higher frequency as well. It's just that most individuals don't. So it's a bit like expecting to have communication on 11 channels and broadcasting on 11 channels, but only getting 1 channel back. So those children feel as if they're being ignored. But if you look at the way they operate, I mean, they understand things beyond their ages. They can do things beyond their capabilities. They have the ability to work things out, or mathematics, without going through the boring old justification of that. That's the question, and that's the answer. They just know the answer. So it's not about chemicals. It's not about DNA manipulation. It's not about changes in the food stuff. It's not about changing the environment. It's about there's a more purer state of soul and body type or vehicle they're being able to incarnate into. And I can see that around 2080 we might get 60 to 65% of children who are this sort of type, including those that we classify as being Down syndrome. They're a really pure soul, and they have no hidden agendas at all. So that's another thing that we're going to start to see an increase in as well. Thank you for that. Okay, next question. AB, does consciousness continue after death, or does only sentience survive? Is there such a thing as sentience without consciousness? Sentience is consciousness. It's above consciousness, but consciousness is a function of an energy, if it's going through its own Darwinian evolution, moving along or traversing along the road to sentience. So it's evolving to the point where it is sentience, and it can eventually detach from that energy that created that sentience. So the demise of the human body is basically just like us, walking out of a motor car that's now failed us. We've had it for maybe 60 years. I don't see a motor car lasting 60 years unless they're a vintage car. They're in a museum or looked after. But that's basically what happens. The soul uses the body to experience, learn, and evolve, and navigate around an environment. In this case, it's the Earth. It can be lots of other environments in the physical universe, and different galaxies, different planets within those galaxies, different frequencies within the physical universe. And the sentience is, basically continues. But when we lose this body, we go back into the frequencies that we're supposed to be domicile at. We reconnect with our true energetic self, which the Hindus call the Godhead, but we sometimes call the higher self or the oversoul. And we start to remember who and what we are, because our communicative bandwidth has increased exponentially. So rather than just being associated with the little physical body here, we start to understand we're part of a huge volume of sentience and energy. So we do regain our consciousness afterwards. Next one again. Dear God, what can we do to help ascension take place? Meditate, be of service, and do everything in a considered way. Consciously make a decision how to interact with people, how to interact with the environment, how to do that which we're responsible for, which also includes our jobs. We have to make sure that we do the best we can, because as we do a good job, we evolve. As we do things properly, we do things without creating links. So karmic links, these things which give us low frequency thoughts, behaviors, and actions, or a need to come back to sever a link, which is the most popular way of understanding karma. So in essence, what we've got is the need to create the potential for ascension whilst we're in this body, is really to avoid any function or anything that creates us thinking in a negative way, a low frequency thought process. So meditate, be of service when it's required, and think good of everybody, and that'll take you a long way towards it. Okay, so this is from Daniel said, what is the difference between sentience, consciousness, and intelligence? How are they linked, and how can they be improved upon? How does one do that? Well, everybody here has gone past intelligence, has moved past consciousness, and is now in the sentience regime. So no need to worry about that. Basically, it's understanding that we are a sentient entity, and that unless we have, and I can say that everybody in this particular broadcast hasn't, unless we've evolved through the standard Darwinian evolution of energies that creates basic intelligence all the way through to sentience, we will have been created through the individualization of sentience and energy from a larger volume of sentience and energy. So we don't need to not really bother about understanding what the difference is, other than the fact that intelligence is part of consciousness. Consciousness is part of sentience. In the Origin Speaks, there is a chapter on this, and there's I think it's about 22 steps for the road to sentience, for an energy to evolve through, and that gives you the the description of what they are and the order which they in. So if you can find that, what I'll try and do is I'll take an extract of that from the book actually and add it to the email that I send out to you all. And I'll also send a link to it so that if people see it via YouTube, they can also download it by the link. Okay. Next question is from Faith. As we realize that we are involved in a story and detach ourselves from the story, then it seems like there is no reason to do anything. Meaning origin or source already knows all there is about what is happening now, since there is no past, present, or future. How does origin or sentience describe this? Every actions means taking a role in this matrix. It appears to me that people become more aware when they're supposed to become more aware. So is the goal of the game to become fully aware? I can't see more info on it. Whilst I am really see myself asking this question, I feel there is no answer to it. Interesting that the desire is missing. Well, it's interesting to note that in the book I'm writing right now, I am bouncing backwards and forwards to different event spaces where the origin has experienced different levels of evolution and different levels of polyomniscience, well, I can't even say the words now. I can type it, but it's polyomnipresence and polyomniscience, basically. So different levels of itself. So in essence, everything has already happened and will happen. But at some point, there has to be experiencing of that which will happen. So it's all right knowing academically that, oh, if we do this, then this happens. We do that, then that happens. But we learn through experiencing it firsthand by not knowing what's going to happen. So that's the evolutionary process. So we on behalf of source, well, on behalf of our true energetic self, and then on behalf of source, and then on behalf of origin, experience the minute detail of all these different things. And although there appears to be no point if it's already happened, we're creating the condition that makes it already happen by experiencing it anyway. It's a little bit like being able to have a helicopter view of a maze and knowing the shortest route from the outside of the maze to the center and back again. But it's a difference in experiencing having these 12-foot walls and having to work it out yourself. That's the difference. And that's why we do it. So there's a point to it all. It's about experiencing difficulty and experiencing progression, so to speak, as a result of us interacting with that, which, although it's already happened, for us, we're experiencing it as if it hasn't already happened. Because in the low frequencies of this particular part of the universe, we're not connected to that higher function. So we are experiencing it probably for the first time, although we haven't. If that makes any sense. Okay, next one is from Jagjot. Yoga Sutra Patanjali says, Om is the sound of God. Based upon your conversations with Source, how relevant is this info? Om is the base resonant frequency of everything, not just Source. It's beyond Source. It's in what the Hindus call the Absolute, which I'm told to call the Origin. It is just the base resonant frequency. And it isn't just a base resonant frequency in terms of the human understanding as being one frequency. It pervades everything at all levels within the structure of that which is Source and that which is the Origin. So there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of science in Hindu texts that needs to be understood and unraveled and probably not so much translated but converted into our modern understanding of things, because the language of the day and the education of the day was how things were taught, whereas we're more experienced now and more mature and more expansive in terms of our understanding. So if we can look at these teachings and say, okay, that means this now and that means that now, oh, but we also know more now, so this would have been a step towards this, then we can start to understand that some of these writings from some of these sages, some of these old civilization scientists, if you want to call them that, will be a way for us to understand how things are. And they've all got relevance. So next question, we perceive the 3D world in terms of X, Y, and Z coordinates, height, width, and depth. Good. But when you say we're on a third frequency in the first dimension, how do we visualize or perceive frequency? 1, 2, 3? No. What science calls 3 dimensions is actually just a metric for volume. Height, width, and depth, X, Y, and Z. Frequency is a fundamental building block for the next level of structure upwards, which is subdimensions. in my current understanding. That may change in 100 years' time. And then above that, you've got full dimensions, and above that, you've got zones, and above that, you've got continuum, and there's all sorts of different levels above that. Again, that's in the Origin Speaks, the different levels. For the first of the 12 levels within the group of 12 levels that are 12 levels. That's coming out of this book I'm writing now, so it's a bit confusing. So the thing to do is to perceive that the first three frequencies create the possibility of volume, the solidification of energies, the lowering of the frequency so it becomes static. So that's when we start to see things like the anu, which is the basic building block of the physical, start to become manifest. So if you think of it that way, that's probably the best way to think of it, is that the first three frequencies create the conditions that allows the physical environment to exist, because it creates the condition where the energies start to become so slow that they become solid or create volume, a volumetric type of environment. Next question 3. When we ask a question in the energetic to any specific entity, are other entities in the lower or higher frequencies able to access the question at the same time? Yes, basically, usually in the higher frequencies. Those, because they will be able to experience everything concurrently. So when they're in the higher frequencies, such as our true energetic selves or other entities that are higher than our true energetic selves, they would experience everything we experience concurrently. So the answer to that is yes, basically. It's more likely that the lower frequency entities won't, but the higher frequencies, yes. Next 4, is tinnitus part of a spiritual awakening? How long does it, if so, how long does it last? That's a question on its own. There's another one further on down, okay? Tinnitus, basically, in my understanding, is a function of our spiritual awakening, or should we say our ascension up the frequencies, where we start to perceive with our mind's ear, which can also be overlaid with our physical ears, the base resonant frequency of all the functions of the chakras, not just one, all of them. So it becomes a buzz, like white noise in the background, rather than being the specific noise, timbre, whatever we want to call it, they would create individually based upon their frequential functionality. And it would last, I mean, I get it all the time. And specifically when I'm meditating, and specifically when I'm thinking of spiritual things, because I'm tuned into this. But I can turn it off. So basically, if you meditate on turning it off, it should turn off. Okay. As an incarnation, we're a projection of our higher self, as we have arrived in the physical to experience evolutionary content. Since we are part of a projection of a higher self, does that mean that we cannot perform mystic functions or mystic perfections, since we are missing the higher aspects of our incarnate in the physical body? Basically, there's the lower frequencies that stops us from doing things. Unless we are really pure and we've worked on ourselves and we've opened our communicative bandwidth to a level where we can start to access the functions that we would normally enjoy, or get somewhere towards them, things that are classified as being miracles, such as what the Buddha did, or what some of the Hindu gurus did, for example, yogis did, what Jesus did, for example. We would not be able to do those sorts of things. We'd not be able to teleport. We'd not be able to do astral traveling properly. Not be able to do telekinesis, because we're not accessing those higher frequencies. When we work on ourselves and we meditate and we expand our frequencies, so our communicative bandwidth expands, we start to know who and what we are. We then start to understand how we can manipulate the physical universe. Okay. Next question from Daniel. Okay. Almost everybody we meet or encounter comes into our lives to help us. How can we determine that these encounters with antagonist and protagonist are pre-agreed upon, and these souls are probably our very best spiritual friends? Okay, thanks. Oh, he's saying thank you very much. Basically, in essence, everybody we interact with has a point, as a function. We have a vast number of different interactions that we have within an environment, within circumstances, within individuals, within those circumstances and that environment. And they're all part of our growth. They're all part of our navigation through this incarnation. where we can experience, learn, and evolve in the most robust and repeatable way. So they're all part of it. Sometimes we miss them, but if we miss them in this particular reality or event space, we'll interact with them in a different reality or event space. So just because we don't do something particularly correct in this event space, another version of us will be. So we don't need to worry too much about making a missed interaction. We just need to do the best we can with what we can here. So that's the most important thing. Okay, another one from Andy. Can a soul choose to never reincarnate again, even if their karma demands that they do so? Very human question, actually, that is. In essence, we would need to clear karma, and we choose to clear karma. So we choose to remove those links that keep us coming back here. So based upon that, we would elect not to. We'd elect to come back. But we do get to a point when we evolve to a certain level where we can start to consider that we don't need to come back here, because we can evolve and we can progress our evolution through remaining in the energetic rather than coming down to lower frequencies that we call the physical. So that can happen. That's when we sort of go into sort of the medium frequential levels within the multiversal environment. If we choose to, if our true energetic self or our higher self decides that we, as an individualization of it, that is no longer needed to incarnate, then we would recommune with our true energetic self or higher self or oversoul or Godhead. And therefore that karmic function will be stripped away from us and then basically taken on board by other aspects of us. Right, I'm being told we've got 10 minutes, okay? Luckily it counts down. Actually, it's fantastic. Next part of its question: our human biochemistry has evolved to basically accumulate karma. When we eat something sweet, dopamine is released and we become addicted. When we see someone attractive, other chemicals released and we want to be with them. We choose cars that look flashy and drive fast ones instead of the economical ones because they represent status and power. Each of these instances echo instinctual drives within us that have evolved to perpetuate the survival of our souls and the human species. So I ask, why has a human being evolved in a way which perpetually propagates karmic behavior? Actually, it's the ego that does that, because the ego wants to perpetuate its existence because it only exists while we're incarnate. It's never lost. It's all, but it becomes absorbed, becomes part of the greater personality that's accrued by our true energetic self over countless tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives that all of its smaller aspects have experienced. So this attraction to these different materialistic thoughts, behaviors, and actions, and material status and wealth and ownerships is basically our choices. It's like us being given the chance to take the bus rather than drive a Ferrari. You know, it's more economically and ecologically friendly to take the bus with everybody else than it is to spend a couple of $100,000 on a car that probably does 18 miles to the gallon. So it's about, it's giving us that every time we experience these potential opportunities, it's us giving us the chance, in conjunction with the ego or in competition with the ego, to choose the best route, to choose the better route, rather than the more sort of desirable route. And it's difficult because the more desirable route is usually quite easy to slip down the frequencies with, where it's more difficult to choose the more sort of ecologically or spiritually friendly route. Next question: how do we access entry into a portal if we're able to see one? Basically, what we need to do is meditate by where it is and allow ourselves to just become empty and feel it. So if you find one, it's usually going to be in an area where there is a lot of, shall we say, natural energies, natural forces, such as in a forest or by the sea or by rivers or by minerals or rocks, and just sit down and meditate by them, and you'll feel the energies. And then you can sort of, when you get used to the energies, you can start to give yourself the potential to ask to be part of that portal, or project some part of yourself into the portal. It's a bit difficult to explain, basically, but if you can, with your mind's eye, see yourself moving through that portal, then you will do. Not particularly straight away, but you will do. and then you'll get used to the different processes. It'll be initially be difficult, but eventually, if you keep doing it, it'll become easier and easier and easier. Okay. Right. Next question is: sometimes we have a burning question to ask you, and then we are in your presence, and the question comes up to ask, and it feels as if we know the answer already. It is no longer a burning question, even though we may not understand how to articulate the answer. It feels as if we know it already just by being in your presence. Is that true? How does that work? It's not just me, it's all of you. Basically, we create a synergetic effect. We all want to be in the same space. We all want to understand the same concepts. We all want to be in the same frequency band. So we create a synergetic effect as a function of the multiple, the square of us all. So right now we've got 12, 13, 14, 15 people here. So it's the square of 15 gives us the synergetic effect associated with it. So we start to connect with the greater reality and know the answer without knowing the detail that creates the answer, which is good. What is the current frequency of Earth and us? Has it improved in any way? I think we've answered this question before. It's still not up to 4. It's not above. It's above 3. I'm seeing it around 3.4 right now. It's moving up and down, and clearly we have local high spots and local low spots. So it depends on where you are really, but in general, it's around 3.4. So we've lost a lot. But I am seeing that around this time next year, we'll be starting to move up because we're starting to understand how to become mature. And a good example is the political nonsense that we've seen in the UK government right now. That's a perfect example of how we should become mature, and how we should recognize that really, if we want to have people leading us, we need to have those individuals who are mature enough to do the job properly, rather than be like children in a playground. Okay, we've only got 4.5 minutes left, so if I run out of time, I will answer the questions and add them on to the chat, and I'll also answer them as an audio, and you'll be able to get them via the email or via YouTube. Okay, next one. AB, here's a quote: I am Ra, you're existing at all levels simultaneously. It is specifically correct that your higher self is in the mid-6th density, and in your way of measuring what you know of as time, your higher self is yourself in your future. This is an acceptable understanding of higher self or Tess? Yes, it's pretty good actually. It's not mid-6th density. I would need to study that and meditate on it to fully understand what he's trying to say as mid-6th density, unless that is considering that the 6th density is the 6th full dimension, which you could classify as a density, because everything's a function of frequency, which is the lower the frequencies, the more dense we become. So it's a good way of understanding it. It's just that sometimes we need to understand that some of the nomenclature is different, but try to feel the words, try to feel the meaning behind them, and see how they link into what I say, what other individuals say, what Eckhart Tolle said, for example, and other people like Arkady Petrov, for example, what these people have said, and try the feeling behind the words rather than the use of the words. That's the most important. Nostradamus predicted an antichrist. What can we do as a mankind to stop him coming? Basically, be good examples and identify to people what is wrong, rather than what we think is right. So try to be a good example of how to navigate through your incarnation without accruing karma. And that's the best thing to do, is just to really be the best example we can be for everybody else. And that will stop the potential for other entities coming on the planet who will create a condition where we're in conflict with each other. But eventually they do create a common focus for us all to realize that we can't behave in this way. That's what entities like Hitler did, like Saddam Hussein, for example, and like Idi Amin. They all created a potential focus for us to realize that we were doing the wrong thing. Okay, so last question. Does it bother guides that they can't help us more when we are going through periods of deep suffering, or our guides not so emotionally invested. They're not emotionally invested. They are very, very detached, but they do their best to make sure that they can help us. So even though we think we're going through a hard time, they will be there doing their best to trying to direct us or navigate us into the event space where we can start to come out the other side. So they do help us. Sometimes we have to experience these things to grow, and sometimes we've elected to go into those things to come out the other side, and they'll be there to help us. They're always there to help us. It's just sometimes we don't think so. Okay, well, we've run out of time again. This these minutes, they rocket past, don't they? So thank you very much for all your questions. It's absolutely delightful to be able to work with you again, and looking forward to seeing you next time. So namaste to you all, God's love to you all, and looking forward to seeing you all again soon.
Welcome everybody to the meditation side of this World Satsanga. And as I suggested in the lecture, or the start of the lecture, we're going to have a meditation on calmness. So what I want you to do is the usual meditative posture that we've done in all World Satsangas, which is find yourself in a straight backed chair, or if not, you can sit cross-legged or in half or full lotus if you're that supple. And make sure that your back is straight. Your head is erect, your feet are flat on the ground, your hands are palm uppermost on your upper thighs at the junction of the lower body and the upper thighs. Your eyes are closed but gently focused on the origin of the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to just be at the moment. Just let yourself focus on this origin of the spiritual third eye. Focus on your breathing. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Not thinking about anything other than what you can see in your mind's eye as you focus gently on the spiritual third eye. And the gentle inrush of air from your nose into your lungs and out of your lungs back through your mouth. Doing this, you're slowing your metabolism down. Your thinking is focused and becomes non-thinking. We're no longer considering our environment. We're no longer considering the little jobs we have to do around the house, the shopping list, the worries at work, the commitments we've made. Any of our responsibilities. The only responsibility we have is being here and now, in this state of beingness, focusing on the spiritual or third eye, the origin of the spiritual or third eye, and of the breathing, the inspiration and expiration of air through the nose, into the lungs, and out through the lungs, through the mouth. Just stay like this for a moment. Okay, so now we've started to concentrate on the focus of the internal vision, the mind's eye, on the location of the origin of the third eye, and also concentrating on the breathing, starting to slow our metabolism down. In doing so, things like hearing, taste, touch, and of course sight and smell start to disappear into the background. They slowly start to turn off as our metabolism slows down, as we become calmer. Calmness is about detachment, not about rejection or renunciation of responsibility. It's about seeing things as something that has to be done without the emotional content. One of the ways in which we can remain calm in difficult situations is to consider that it's somebody else's problem that we're sorting out, and that we've got plenty of time to do it. Although doing it right now, for example, is the optimal time to do it. So we detach ourselves from the immediacy and the emotional content associated with what might be happening to us. You can think of it as something that's happened 20 or 30 years ago, and therefore doesn't affect you in the now. You're just going over what could have been done then. Or it might be something that will happen 100 years in the future. So it's not affecting you in the now. So if it's in the future, it's like you're planning how to deal with it. So again, you're detached from the immediacy of that which is affecting you. It's either somebody else's problem that you're dealing with it for them, something you've done in the past that you might improve upon, or something that's in the future that you're going to plan for. But in all instances, you choose to do it now. But you're detached from it. It's not eating you up. It's not creating stress. It's not providing things that are too difficult, because you'll break it down. Break everything down to small tasks. Small tasks that are basically achievable very easily, that you can see is going to give you feedback. That you can see is going to illustrate that you've been successful in that small job. That you can see is going to show that you can progress to the next part. See things as small, achievable, simple things that you have to do. Don't consider everything as one big chunk of work. Don't race in your mind to the end product and see it as unsurmountable. Work everything out as being little tasks that leads on to the next task, that leads on to the next task. Don't rush. Do things methodically. Do it once rather than 3 or 4 times because you did it wrong. Do things with joy on your heart. Again, this creates calmness. Don't see things as a task, but see it as an enjoyable occupation. If you wish, if you feel stressed, remember this meditation. Go into meditation. Close your eyes. Focus your closed eye vision gently on the spiritual third eye. And focus on your breathing as well. Breathing into the nose and out through the mouth. Allowing yourself the time to just be. Remember how you felt, how you feel. And how you feel is calm. Nothing matters. There is nothing that is unsurmountable. Notice how your heart rate decreases. Notice how you feel insular inside yourself. You don't feel as if you're your body. Pains and aches go. Background noise disappears. Smells vaporize into nothingness. Taste is no longer there. You're just in a state of total beingness and therefore calmness. So remember how you feel right now. Very simple process. Closed eye, gently focused on the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. The rest of you is focused on the breathing. Breathing in through the nose, into the lungs, filling the lungs gently, not straining your breathing, being very natural, and then exhaling through the mouth. Just letting yourself slow down and just be. So slowly open your eyes. Slowly come back into the room. Take a drink of water if you like to help ground you. And just remember how this has created a feeling of calmness within you. And you can use this at any time, irrespective of the thing which is causing you discomfort or concern. It'll always bring you into a state of calm beingness. Okay, so this is the end of this World Satsanga held in 26th of October. Looking forward to working with you all in November. So namaste to you all, and Source's blessings to you all.